The House of Representatives moves toward a historic impeachment vote on President Trump. Is the outcome obvious, or do surprises await? And a moment of agreement, replacing NAFTA with the USMCA. We have a roundtable of representatives to talk about it all. Today is Sunday, December 15, 2019, and this is Flashpoint.
Hi, welcome to Flashpoint. And is there any other way to describe an impeachment vote than a flashpoint? That's what we have ahead of us this week, as the full House will vote on the articles of impeachment approved by the Judiciary Committee Friday morning. Oddly enough, there seems to be very little suspense ahead of us, unless something truly bizarre occurs. We watched hours and hours of passionate, occasionally angry debate, but you had the feeling there were no minds open to change. Actually, we did get one change yesterday as New Jersey Democrat Jeff Van Drew told aides of his plan to switch to the Republican Party, as he has stood against the issue of impeachment. But even so, it would seem the Democratic majority in the House will impeach the president, and then the Republican majority in the Senate, in a trial that could be short and sweet or lengthy and vigorous, will vote to keep the president in office. That is not to say there aren't quite a few subplots worth watching. And to help me dig into those this morning, I'm very happy to have with me 4 members of the Michigan Congressional delegation to hash it out. The Democrats, Debbie Dingell, Brenda Lawrence, and Andy Levin, and the Republican, Paul Mitchell, in a breakdown that is rather representative of the Southeast Michigan voices in Congress. Impeachment with 4 of those who will cast votes on the fate of Donald J. Trump today on Flashpoint. There are, theoretically, depending on absences, 435 votes to be cast on the impeachment of President Trump. 4 of those votes are at my table this morning. With me are Democratic Congressman from Michigan's 9th Congressional District, Andy Levin, a Democrat from Michigan's 14th District, Brenda Lawrence, Democrat from the 12th District, Debbie Dingell, and holding down the Republican side from the 10th District, Paul Mitchell. I've already seen on Twitter I've got 3 against 1. Paul, you feel you're up to it? But
I'm okay in the weight class. It's okay.
Well, it is representative of the way that the breakdown works in Southeast Michigan. Congressman Dingell, I'd like to start with you, of course.
Of course.
Because last night we had the president, after your appearance on cable news, the president saying, tweeting out, "The last time I spoke to Debbie Dingell was her call thanking me for granting top memorial and funeral service honors for her then just departed husband, longtime Congressman John Dingell. Now I watch her ripping me as part of the Democrats' impeachment hoax. Really pathetic!" Exclamation point.
Well, I was sort of speechless last night. Today, I wasn't ripping him. I was trying to be thoughtful about what I think is a very sad time in our nation's history, and a very difficult vote for all of us. It's not a celebratory time in our country. And as I said back to him, I have been very clear from the day he was elected. I will work with him on anything that will help the working men and women of my district in this state, and have worked with him. I said to people kept saying Democrats weren't going to work to try to find a common ground on what I call NAFTA 2.0. We're all waiting to read the written report,
right.
But we did. I'll work with you on issues, but my job is to also protect our Constitution, our democracy, and it's a difficult time, but when I cast that vote next week, that's what I took my oath of office to do.
You decided what that vote will be now?
I'm going to do one more reading tonight. I am greatly disturbed by what I've seen. But I don't do this lightly in any way, shape, or form. So I'm going to read that intelligence report and read those judiciary reports one more time so I know I've dotted every I and crossed every T.
Staying with the flow of news on this, Congresswoman, you caused quite a stir about a week and a half ago by suggesting that it might be better to censure the president rather than impeach the president. What are you planning now to do with your vote?
I have been consistent. I want to impeach the president because I feel the behavior is warranted. What I said is that it would be a dereliction of duty for the Republicans to just absolve this president of all the actions. I sit on government oversight as well. So I've been looking into action after action, the emoluments, the issuing of top clearance security to his family, people like Giuliani being intervened into our national security policies without any government accountability. And so you add on top of this the egregious
But as
act.
Republicans have pointed out, by the way, none of the things you just mentioned are part of the articles of impeachment.
However, for me, I have been looking at these things from day one. And so for me, when the first time that we issued the request for articles of impeachment, I signed on. What I feel so sad about and what is really bothering me is this deliberate attempt from the Senate to just absolve and to turn their head and not see anything. We cannot let history reflect that this type of behavior by any president, Democrat, Republican, is acceptable. And I said, at minimum, would they consider a censorship? Because now they're saying they're just going to vote and say nothing's wrong.
I happen to have a Republican handy. If censuring the president was the direction this was going, is that something you would support?
Let's take a step back a second, Devin. I think we have to. Democrats, many of them, not all of them, have been on the path of saying we need to impeach the president and we'll find a reason. In fact, Brenda, you supported Green's resolution to impeach the president in January 2018.
Yes.
We'll find a reason. I mean, it's like, we'll find a reason, we'll convict him later. The reality is, impeachment is, in my opinion, a safety valve. When someone does, in this case the president, something that is so immoral and illegal as to threaten the basis of a republic, not because we don't like their rhetoric, their politics, their policy, that's not what it's for. If it was, we'd have impeached a number of other presidents before. I'll offer LBJ as a perfect example, not the best human being. They didn't try to impeach him and go through a list of people. And I don't want to do equivalencies here today, but we need to recognize that impeachment is a very serious act that warrants a decision of, is that a threat to our republic and why? But some people have been talking about this shortly after he was inaugurated, putting in resolutions to impeach him just because they don't like the guy. We weaponize this is going to be out of control.
To the specific weapon, though, that we're talking about right now and his dealings with Ukraine, if this was an option to censure the president for the way that he behaved vis-a-vis the military aid being withheld over a personal political favor, would you be in favor of censoring the president?
There's one line of that transcript that refers to Biden and Burisma. One line, actually Biden, not Burisma, actually. One line in that telephone call.
I always bristle. People keep wanting to call it a transcript. It's actually a summary of a conversation.
They call it a transcript, but you're right. It is derived from a series of people's notes of all the people that listen to the phone call. There's one line. I don't think any reference should have been made whatsoever. But again, I'll go back to, we're going to impeach people because of one line in a conversation they had?
To that point, Congressman Levin, in the first 200 years of our nation, we had one impeachment proceeding. We've now had 3 in the last 45 years. To address the Congressman's point about whether or not this is becoming a political weapon, a cudgel.
You know, I'm willing to adopt Congressman Mitchell's idea about what should constitute an impeachable offense completely. I thought that was very well stated, and I think Donald Trump has absolutely crossed that line. I'm not, I can't think about weaponizing impeachment. I took an oath of office to uphold the Constitution, and Donald Trump has clearly crossed the line, violating his oath of office. He has put pressure on, extorted even a vulnerable ally to investigate a political rival, holding up $391 million of aid passed completely on a bipartisan basis by the Congress, withholding a meeting. I think it's important to think about the substance of this. I happen to represent the center of the Ukrainian American community in Warren and Sterling Heights and so forth. Think of this from their perspective. Their homeland matters a lot to them. I talk to them about Ukraine. Imagine what it feels like if we are siding with Russia. That's nothing to do with traditional.
But you've heard time and again, though, people
outside.
pointing out that the president of Ukraine says there was no quid pro quo to him. So why shouldn't we take his word at it?
Because he's the vulnerable victim of the president's extortion. Even the president's own $1 million donating ambassador to the EU said there was a quid pro quo. The president's acting chief of staff said there was a quid pro quo until he walked it back. There's no question about it.
Let's talk about quid pro quo. We started with quid pro quo, and the Democrat Congressional Committee decided to focus groups on that because they couldn't figure out what words to use. Then they went to bribery, see if that would sell the American people. That wasn't working so well, so now we're going to use abuse of office. So figure out first what term you'd like to use. Second of which is Sondland's comments about the quote, quid pro quo, whatever you call it, came in a revised testimony after somehow he magically remembered. Although in his original testimony, he said 132 times that he couldn't remember. It's a miracle. Just a
Paul,
no,
I was in the room.
Let me finish. I'll let you finish.
Go ahead.
Second of which is Yermak, the president of Ukraine's aide, said that in fact the conversation Sondland said about holding back the aid and all that never happened. Never happened. And they were in a group, so how could it happen? To be extorted, you have to actually know someone's putting the pressure on you. So where did this happen? Other than presuming, and you can't impeach a president on presumption.
There's no presumptions. I was in the room in the deposition when Ambassador Sondland couldn't remember anything. His testimony was so untenable. It was so not credible
and now you're
that we weren't surprised at all when he submitted later a written statement that was more substantive and more honest.
Because he was called on it.
And then he testified in public. But the president on the White House lawn, this isn't about one phone call. This is about a months-long campaign, Devin, where the president of the United States used the official government channels and his private lawyer messing in our national security affairs. It's completely outrageous. There's no question that history will record that the president crossed the line here.
We have to be really clear. The people that could be in the room and sit at the table to take this beyond hearing and what people are saying have been forbidden by the President of the United States. He has obstructed the process so that those people cannot testify.
Obstruction of Congress or justice requires a couple of things. First, you have to subpoena them. No one subpoenaed Bolton. No one subpoenaed Giuliani. Second of which is if you don't like the response of executive privilege, which every president's done in modern era, you go to the court system.
Every other president has complied.
Again, I get to finish. And then you get to pursue that. It worked under Nixon where, in fact, they overturned executive privilege. It can be done. It just doesn't fit the narrative that, in fact, you folks want that we're going to have impeachment by Christmas. Ho, ho, ho.
I got to get to a break because we have to help people with their Christmas shopping and things like that. There's mercantile business to be done. We'll continue, though, with this very important conversation. This is Flashpoint, live on Local 4. Back with more in just a minute.
I just want to celebrate another day of living. I just want to celebrate another day of life.
Firekeepers wants to help pay off your holiday bills on December 28th. 17 winners will share over $200,000, including two $30,000 grand prizes and the year in style. Earn entries daily.
I just want to celebrate another day of life.
The region is on the rise. Project after project, building, growing, innovating. We're building the future right now. Hard work matters here. IBEW Local 58 electricians and NECA signatory contractors bring commitment, pride, expertise, and passion to every job. It's our code of excellence. One vision, one team, one mission. To build the very best Michigan for all of us. Put us to work for you. The best contractors, the best electricians, period.
DTE Energy wants to help you build Michigan's future. Whether your business is large, small, or in between, a DTE expert can partner with you to suggest new technologies and incentives to help you save money. Money you can use to create jobs and invest in the future. Because when your business thrives, Michigan does too. DTE Energy.
Monday at 5. Fire tragedies. They've rocked local neighborhoods. Now,
the State Fire Marshal's Office and Livonia Fire Department intentionally lighting things on fire for a brand new safety message. Fire in the hole!
they're warning.
We're seeing these fires get hotter so much faster.
Find out what's making house fires faster and even more dangerous than before.
They've got minutes if they're lucky.
And the backup plan you should practice that could make all the difference. Monday on Local 4 News at 5.
Welcome back to this live edition of Flashpoint with 4 members of Congress. Congressman Mitchell said to me during the break, you didn't ask me about my vote. I guess I didn't. How are you planning to vote?
You're making a presumption there. Well, I said earlier that what the requirements are, in my opinion, to impeach a president. Even the Speaker said it had to be compelling evidence that was bipartisan in order to move forward with impeachment. We haven't achieved either, but apparently we're going to move forward. I'm going to vote no because it doesn't meet the standard.
Congresswoman Dingell, wouldn't you feel better if there were at least a few Republicans on one side, or Democrats voting the other? I mean, wouldn't it feel better if it was a little bit more bipartisan?
Look, this is a moral issue, and I don't think it should be partisan. I'm not voting, I'm not putting my finger in the air and saying, what are my constituents doing? I didn't do that last summer. I think this is a really important vote. Yes, I would feel better if it was. I'm going to tell you one of the things that I'm worried about, and I have been repeatedly saying this for a year. Russia is trying to divide us. It's very clear in the Mueller report. It's an underlying theme that nobody talks about. We have intelligence agencies from other democracies around the world saying that they know that Russia is trying to destabilize democracies. I've said this to Paul, I've said it to many of my friends on the Republican side. We got to figure out how we're going to pull ourselves back together.
China's also trying. And
that's what he always says to me.
We had a classified,
right.
we had a classified briefing last week about specific activities of the Chinese government as it relates to some members of Congress.
Yeah, we did
so
too.
it's not just, I agree with Russia, so is China, so is North Korea. It's a
But
problem.
not Ukraine.
Devin,
I don't know about that, but go ahead.
One of the groups that Russia has targeted were African Americans to suppress and to discourage them from voting. So for me, this lackadaisical attitude and this embracing of foreign entities into something that's so sacred for Black America, and they know that our vote is so critical, that this is something to me that is, it hits that personal level of my commitment of office to be a voice, to stand up and say, no, President. I can tell you, and I will say this to Mitchell and to any other Republican, if Barack Obama was doing the same behavior, I would be voting to impeach him.
Interestingly, Congressman Levin, we ended up with a very important issue, somehow kind of getting tangled up in the debate about impeachment. USMCA was passed into law. You all are still waiting, I guess, for a lot of the details on this. This replacement for NAFTA, which Democrats have been demanding for more than a decade now. However, there was this sense among some that it only passed because Democrats were desperate to show that you were doing something other than impeaching the president. Is this the right answer to replace NAFTA?
Well, I'm digging into it intensively this weekend, what the actual change was that was made because of the House Democrats demanding it, and what the implementing legislation will look like. Personally, I will not be able to vote for it unless I'm sure that the effect of the new NAFTA will be to break up the protection contracts and phony unions in Mexico so workers there can actually have freedom, can form unions, can raise their standard of living. Unless wages and benefits rise in Mexico, the jobs of the middle class in this country are going to continue to be sucked out of this country into Mexico, and we can't have that. So we're analyzing it this weekend. That's really our homework.
I've lost track of how many times over the years you and I have talked about NAFTA on this at this table.
I'm truly probably, I mean, as complicated as Andy is, though I probably lean more towards, I have to look at the written language, and I think we've got to be very clear when we vote for this. This is not going to bring, the Democrats made very significant improvements in it in a number of areas, labor enforcement, on the pharmaceutical area, and that's been done. There's some concerns in the environmental areas, which I've been talking to the environmentalists about, but NAFTA 1.0 shipped jobs overseas. They're never coming back. If this stops the flow of jobs to Mexico, I'll vote for it. But this is not enough. It's a beginning. It's a first step. It's better than NAFTA 1.0, but we have many other things that we've got to do.
It's interesting, Congressman. President Trump called NAFTA the worst trade deal ever. This looks like it's about 85 to 90% the same thing. Can it be that much of a revolution if it hasn't really been altered that
I guess
much.
I disagree with your assessment. I don't think it is in a lot of senses. It increases the domestic requirement for parts in automobiles, for example.
Yes.
The other thing it deals with, which is kind of hidden there, is if it wasn't specifically mentioned in NAFTA part, then it was deemed to be North American. So, for example, your entire entertainment unit, that wonderful screen you have in your car, they called it became North American, despite the fact it's not produced in North America in most cars. So it's a significant sets of issues that are hidden in there. We've got agricultural components that to help with dairy, that help the poultry industry, a variety of folks that were kind of left and damaged by NAFTA. My dad lost his job because of NAFTA. His plant closed. He had to move elsewhere. He ultimately retired early. So I think NAFTA was destructive. I think this is a significant improvement. And as I said when I ran for Congress, if you can get something that's better than where it's at, take it and move on to the next thing. We've got trade issues with China. With Europe, we have significant issues that also adversely impact America that we need to deal with. And if we can't get this done, who else is going to negotiate with us on trade?
In fact, wrap China into this as well, because we saw kind of, I guess, what you'd refer to as a détente that we've reached now on China. Is that any kind of progress at all in the trade war, which has impacted Michigan in a big way?
The one thing we've seen repeatedly is deflecting. This is a critical time that the president must create some smokescreen. One of the things with this trade deal is that our labor voice, those who are actually on the ground and directly impacted, the workers, that's something that I've been in contact with our labor leaders, asking for their concerns. You know, the communication workers, these call centers, you know, when you call any help desk, it's usually not an American answering the phone, and those jobs are gone. And will this fix everything? No. Are we moving in the right direction? Yes. Is this the time to do it? I would question that. I don't think that we're ready to push the button on this, but we must do better than NAFTA. And so the fact that we're all at the table, I mean, somebody needs to give us a data boy. We had the Republicans, the Democrats, and the White House all in the same room working on this issue because it's critical to our economy. Yeah. And the workers are the ones that's gonna, you know, sink or swim with the decisions we make here. So it's very critical.
You want to jump in on what you feel about what's happened with China on this? Because you've talked about China
I mean,
a lot.
the China's attitude and behavior on trade has been totally unacceptable for years. The way Donald Trump's gone about dealing with this has been incoherent and very unproductive. He has caused a huge trade war with China.
Isn't he finally doing something about, for instance, the intellectual property theft and the currency manipulation? It was finally doing something, wasn't it?
Where are the Europeans? Where are the Japanese? Where are the Australians? Where are all of our allies? The only way to get China to change its behavior is to all come together and confront the bad actor and say, none of us are going to accept this. The president's doing it the opposite way. He's fighting with all of our friends and our enemies on trade, and it's caused problems. We're in a manufacturing recession here.
I got about 30 seconds left. Is there anybody at the table that believes that there's a chance that the president's going to be removed from office? I actually now have 15 seconds. Is that a chance? Is that a possibility at all?
I do.
You do?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I do.
2020.
No election.
Not in 2020 either.
Sure.
Thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate you spending this
Merry
time
Christmas,
with me.
everybody.
Thanks. We'll go 3 and out. We come right back on Flashpoint.
Forgotten Harvest is a lifesaver for a mother like myself with children and having so many snacks and lunches to make.
The food from Forgotten Harvest make me feel better in school.
Because these children around this community really look for Forgotten Harvest. And I thank Forgotten Harvest for helping me and my family out. Forgotten Harvest needs your support to help families in need.
We need your help today.
All of the excitement around the holidays can be overwhelming, especially for someone struggling with depression, suicidal thoughts, or other mental health or disability-related issues. Many of us have seasonal affective disorder or could show signs of something more serious. If you or someone you love is suffering, you don't have to face it alone. Call the Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network. Here to talk, here to help 24/7. 800-241-4949.
I've got a certain gift this time of year to make my friends and family cheer.
Cool, man. What could it be? Something for me.
Yes, sirree. Holiday instant.
From the lottery.
We're ready. Not done yet. Instant games are fun to give.
They're fun to get.
They're easy to buy.
Very true.
That's why they're my go-to gift.
This year, get the go-to gift. Holiday instants from the Michigan Lottery.
The defenders get results.
A certain type of guardrail that could be a potentially deadly hazard.
A guardrail pierced her car and she was killed instantly.
Defender Karen Drew first exposed the problem.
Defenders have learned these guardrails are used in the state, most of them right here in Metro Detroit.
And other states have had issues.
And the state decided to take action.
Crews out making repairs to local guardrails.
The Local 4 defenders know how to get results.
Because your moments matter.
Need something investigated? Contact the defenders.
Before we say goodbye, let's go 3 and out. First, next year means the U.S. Census is going to take place. These are critical counting endeavors that affect everything from federal funding to the number of seats each state gets in Congress. And word came last week, Detroit is expected to be the toughest city in America to count. A lot of cities have what are known as hard-to-count neighborhoods, but in Detroit, 86% of the neighborhoods fall into that category. All the more critical that the city has its plans together to get the numbers right. Second, the Motor City is used to J.D. Power satisfaction studies on autos. Well, the latest J.D. Power title comes for a different form of transport. Congratulations to Detroit Metro Airport, #1 in customer satisfaction among the nation's mega airports. #2 on the list, by the way, Minneapolis-St. Paul. So that's 2 Delta hubs at the top of the rankings. So good news for Delta, too. Lastly, a tip of the Flashpoint cap to 4 Free Press journalists who opted to take voluntary layoffs last week so that involuntary layoffs wouldn't be necessary at the paper. Pistons reporter Vincent Ellis, photojournalist Kathleen Galligan, and 2 who've been a part of the Flashpoint family, political reporter Kathy Gray and business and development reporter John Gallagher. Chalk up another loss for newspapers and for Detroit journalism. And if I could, as you're making your end-of-year contributions, think about newspaper subscriptions. It may not be tax deductible for you, but supporting good journalism is a wise investment. That's going to do it for us. Thanks for being here. Meet the Press coming up next, right after Mitch Albom's Heart of Detroit. We'll see you next time on Flashpoint.